A disgraced human pilot buys a scrapped alien ship. It turns out to be alive. Elias Rinn sat alone in the dim corner of a seedy cantina on Station Ardent. The smoke hung thick in the air, and the chatter of drunk miners and smugglers filled the room. He nursed a bitter drink, his fingers tracing the scars on his knuckles. Once, he had been a hero of humanity, a pilot celebrated across the colonies for daring missions that no one else could handle. But that was before the accident, the mission that went wrong, the lives lost, and the whispers that called him reckless, careless, even a coward. He could still hear their voices in his mind. He let them die. Not a hero, just a man chasing glory. Elias tried to shut it out, but it lingered, heavier than the gravity of the station itself. He had been stripped of his rank, his accolades, and most of his savings. Now, he was just another shadow wandering through the junkyards of space, looking for scraps that no one wanted. The station hung in a haze of neon lights and rusting metal. Outside, ships of all shapes and sizes drifted lazily, some patched together from scavenged parts, others sleek and dangerous, humming with power. Elias had walked these alleys hundreds of times, eyes scanning for a glimmer of opportunity. That day, fate seemed to flicker like a dying star. He wandered past rusted freighters and broken drones until something unusual caught his eye. Amid a pile of wrecks, a vessel unlike any he had seen before rested, partially buried under scrap. Its hull was smooth, almost organic, like polished bone, yet it shimmered faintly under the station lights. The lines were elegant, alien, and somehow alive. The salvage workers ignored it. To them, it was just a scrapped ship, worthless and stubborn. But Elias felt a pull, a strange resonance. He stepped closer, running a hand along its surface. The metal, or whatever it was, warped slightly under his touch, almost like a pulse. He jerked back, startled. "Crazy, Elias," he muttered. "It's just junk." But his gut told him otherwise. He circled the ship, inspecting every curve, every seam. It was compact, but seemed powerful. The cockpit was unlike human designs, rounded and flowing, with faint lines that glowed when he touched them. He could almost feel a heartbeat inside the hull. His pulse quickened. "Worthless," the salvage captain called out, waving him off. Someone already tried to sell it. No one wanted it. "You can have it cheap." That word lit a spark. Elias didn't have much, but he had enough to gamble. He knew value when he saw it, and this thing was more than scrap. He haggled with the captain, using every trick he knew. He pointed out the damage, complained about the lack of parts, and acted disinterested. Finally, he walked away with the ship for a price so low it felt like a gift from the universe. Dragging the vessel to a small docking bay, Elias paused. The ship seemed to shift slightly, as if it were aware of him. He shook his head. "Get a grip. It's just a pile of metal." Still, when he climbed into the cockpit, he felt a warmth beneath his palms. The control panels lit up in response, soft lines flowing across the surfaces in patterns that reminded him of neural pathways. His fingers hovered over the controls, and the ship responded to his hesitation, almost nudging him forward. Elias laughed, bitter and low. "I guess you've got a mind of your own, huh?" There was no answer, just a subtle hum, like a soft breath, vibrating through the floor beneath him. He shook the feeling off and ran a few basic diagnostics. The systems flickered, then stabilized. Nothing dangerous. Nothing hostile, just alive. He spent hours probing the ship, trying to make sense of it. The cockpit seemed to adapt to him, changing controls and displays in ways he hadn't programmed. When he reached for the throttle, it aligned itself perfectly with his grip. When he blinked at a screen, data appeared in ways he had never seen before. It was learning, or teaching. Elias couldn't explain it. He had piloted every kind of ship known to humanity. He had flown in combat zones, dodged asteroids, outrun black holes. But this was different. It was aware. Exhausted, he leaned back in the pilot's seat. Outside, the station's lights reflected off the hull, giving it an almost lifelike shimmer. He closed his eyes and felt a strange connection, like the ship was watching him as much as he was watching it. Sleep came reluctantly. When he woke, the ship pulsed faintly. a slow rhythm like a heartbeat. Elias swallowed. He wasn't sure if it was excitement, fear, or wonder. Probably all three. He decided to run a short flight test in the station's outer docking zone. The engines roared to life with a sound unlike any machine he had ever heard, a soft, melodic purr that seemed to resonate with his chest. The ship lifted off smoothly, almost gliding. Every movement was responsive, anticipatory, as if it could read his intentions before he acted. Okay, he whispered. This is insane. A small crew of station workers watched from a distance, their mouths open. Elias waved them off. It's fine, just nothing to see here. But he knew he had found something extraordinary, something dangerous, something alive back at the docking bay. He ran more tests, trying to provoke a reaction. He tapped the hull, adjusted the controls erratically, even yelled at it. The ship responded gently, but firmly, as if it were testing him now. Images flickered across the control panels. Brief visions of alien landscapes, structures taller than anything humanity had built, and creatures that seemed intelligent, emotional, and ancient. Elias froze. Memories? Dreams? Communication? He didn't know. He felt a strange empathy, as though the ship was showing him what it had lost, the civilization that had built it, and perhaps what it had endured. A chill ran down his spine. He realized this was no mere vessel. It was alive, conscious, and perhaps lonely. That night, Elias lay in the small quarters of the docking bay, staring at the ship. Every instinct in him told him to run, to call the authorities, to sell it back before things got weird. But another instinct, one older, stronger, and very human, told him to stay, explore, and understand. Because humans were not just survivors, they were explorers. They were curious, they were clever. And Elias had spent his life proving it. He didn't know if he was ready for what came next, but for the first time in months, he felt alive. The ship pulsed again, gently, as if acknowledging him. And Elias smiled. He had bought more than a ship. He had bought a partner, a mystery, and a challenge that might just redeem him or destroy him. And somewhere deep inside, he knew the adventure was only beginning. Elias woke to the faint hum of the ship. It was early in the station's artificial morning, though he barely needed light to see. The cockpit glowed softly, as if the ship were breathing around him. For a moment, he hesitated, unsure whether he was dreaming or awake. He reached for the controls, and the displays shifted, almost like the ship had been expecting him. A soft vibration pulsed through the floor, a rhythm that mirrored his heartbeat. He swallowed. Okay, this is real, he whispered. Elias had spent years piloting human ships, many of them experimental, many of them dangerous. But this ship, this living machine, behaved differently. It wasn't just responsive, it seemed aware. He started with simple tests. He tilted the ship's nose, pushed the thrusters, and ran emergency protocols. Each time, the ship adapted, adjusting in ways that no human system could. When he tried an abrupt maneuver, the ship pulsed lightly, almost as if it were warning him, guiding him. Elias stopped mid-motion and laughed, a little crazily. You're teaching me, huh? The ship didn't answer with words, but through the control panels, images flickered, faint but clear enough to make him blink. They were alien landscapes, vast cities, glowing skies, towers taller than mountains. Strange beings moved through the scenes, their eyes curious and intelligent. Elias leaned closer, fascinated. Is this memory? Or are you trying to tell me something? The images shifted, showing destruction, fire, and fleeing figures. His chest tightened. The ship was alive, and it had a past, a history of loss. Perhaps it was lonely, perhaps even seeking companionship. Elias felt a surge of human empathy. He had known loneliness, disgrace, and shame. Maybe that was why he could feel the connection. He reached out again, and the ship's surfaces shifted under his touch, like skin responding to a gentle hand. He decided it was time for a flight test outside the station. He needed to understand how this living vessel performed in space, away from walls and gravity. The station doors opened, revealing the vast emptiness beyond. Stars glittered like scattered diamonds, and distant planets hung in the void. Elias's fingers danced across the controls, but the ship anticipated each move. It glided effortlessly, responding to his thoughts almost as if it could read his intent. "Unbelievable," he murmured. "You're learning me." As they moved further from the station, Elias tried more complex maneuvers, sharp turns, sudden dives, and evasive loops. The ship matched each command perfectly, sometimes predicting his next move before he made it. Elias felt a thrill he hadn't experienced in years. The human part of him, the part that had once soared through war zones and asteroid fields, reawakened. Hours passed in a blur of stars and exhilaration. Then the ship slowed, hovering above a desolate asteroid belt. Elias checked the sensors. Nothing dangerous here. "But maybe you want to show me something?" The cockpit lights dimmed. A soft voice-like vibration filled his mind. Not words, not language he could speak, but emotions, curiosity, caution, a plea. The ship was communicating through feelings. Elias froze. I think I can feel you," he said aloud. "You're alive." Images flashed across the screens, alien faces, eyes wide with hope, then fear, then loss. Elias realized the ship carried the memories of an entire civilization. He could feel their pain, their joy, their brilliance. His chest ached with empathy. He whispered, almost to himself, I won't let you be forgotten." The ship pulsed gently, almost approvingly. Elias felt a strange connection, a bond forming between human and alien intelligence. It was unlike anything he had experienced. Back near the station, things grew tense. Other salvagers had noticed the ship leaving the yard. Word traveled fast in spaceports. Someone had acquired a strange alien vessel. Rumors spread that it was a weapon or a treasure. Within hours, Elias saw ships in the distance, small but fast, approaching him. Panic flared, but the ship reacted instantly. The controls shifted, forming new interfaces. The engines purred louder, adapting for speed and agility. Elias realized that if anyone tried to board it, they would face more than a machine. They would face a living intelligence. "Looks like we have company," he muttered. "Hope you like a chase." The attackers fired warning shots. The ship dodged, weaving around asteroids with grace that no human pilot could match. Elias felt his confidence surge. The combination of his skill and the ship's intelligence made them almost untouchable. Hours passed as he maneuvered, testing limits and forming trust with the ship. Every time he thought he understood its abilities, it revealed something new. An unexpected burst of speed, a shift in gravity compensation, even a subtle manipulation of the space around them that he couldn't explain. Elias realized this wasn't just a vessel. This was a partner, maybe even a friend. A living entity that responded to courage, creativity, and determination. Later, when the attackers retreated, Elias set a course to explore the outer edges of the system. He wanted to see what the ship could do, to understand it fully. But he also had a human desire to test limits, to feel alive again. Night fell over the station's orbit, and Elias rested while the ship floated silently beside him. The cockpit pulsed faintly, a slow, rhythmic glow, almost like a heartbeat. He wondered what the ship was thinking, what it hoped for, and what secrets it still held. Elias remembered the accident that had ruined him, the one that cost lives and reputation. He had blamed himself for everything. Now, flying with a living ship, he realized that failure wasn't the end. It was the start of something greater. Humans survived because they adapted, because they never stopped trying, and because they cared. He whispered into the empty cockpit, "I'll learn you. And together, maybe we'll do something no one thought was possible." And for the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope. The ship pulsed gently, as if acknowledging him, not just as a pilot, but as someone worthy of trust. Elias didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but he was ready. Because humans didn't give up. Humans faced the unknown. And Elias Rin was human. Elias had spent weeks learning the living ship. He no longer thought of it as a machine. It breathed, it responded, it remembered. When he moved, the ship moved with him. Not under him, but with him. It adjusted controls to match his instincts. It protected him from mistakes, and it seemed to understand his thoughts before he even thought them. He gave it a name in his mind, Lyra. Not a word, just a sound that felt right, soft, and alive. He spoke it aloud sometimes, testing the connection. Lyra pulsed in response, subtle but unmistakable. It was a bond unlike anything he had ever known. Elias had rebuilt his confidence as a pilot in these quiet weeks. The skills that had been doubted, ridiculed, and condemned were alive again. But now, he had a partner that could match him, challenge him, and amplify his instincts. It wasn't long before a real test arrived. A distress signal blinked across the cockpit screens. A small human colony on the outskirts of the system was under threat. A massive asteroid field, unstable and unpredictable, was drifting dangerously close. Mining operations, homes, entire settlements were at risk. Elias stared at the coordinates. He had options: ignore it, stay safe, survive another day. But something inside him flared. "You ready, Lyra?" he asked. The ship pulsed warmly in response. It had learned to recognize urgency and purpose. Elias grinned. "Let's show them what humans can do." The journey to the colony was treacherous. The asteroid field was dense, unpredictable. Sensors read hundreds of tumbling rocks, some massive enough to destroy a station. Conventional ships avoided the area entirely, but Elias didn't fly a conventional ship. He flew Lyra, and Lyra could do things no human ship could. As they approached the field, Elias realized that the challenge was as much mental as physical. Every maneuver had to be precise. Every calculation had to account for both the natural physics and Lyra's unique responsiveness. He leaned forward, hands lightly on the controls. Lyra adjusted immediately, sensing his intent. He guided them into the first cluster. Rocks spun dangerously close, glancing off Lyra's hull with a sound like a soft exhale. Elias gritted his teeth, trusting the ship. Together, they weaved through the chaos. "You're incredible," he whispered, exhilarated. Lyra pulsed, not just as response, but in rhythm with his own excitement. It felt alive and aware of what was at stake. Hours passed, and the danger only grew. One massive asteroid began to drift into the path of the colony. Elias realized he needed more than skill. He needed improvisation. The ship reacted faster than his thoughts, aligning and adjusting in ways he hadn't taught it. He trusted it completely, relying on their bond rather than calculations. "Now, Lyra," he said, and the ship twisted, almost alive, pushing the asteroid off course with a controlled, precise gravitational pulse. It was a feat no human ship could achieve alone. The colony was safe. Lights on the surface flickered in gratitude. Sensors reported minimal damage. Elias exhaled, leaning back, sweat dripping from his brow. He had done it. They had done it. But celebration was brief. Sensors picked up multiple fast-approaching ships, salvagers and mercenaries who had heard rumors of the alien vessel. They weren't friendly. They weren't coming to help. They were coming to take it by force. Elias's jaw tightened. "Lyra, you feel that?" The ship pulsed aggressively, almost like a heartbeat racing in alarm. He knew this was a real test, not just skill, but human cleverness and courage. The attackers fired first. Laser bursts streaked through the asteroid field. Elias reacted instinctively, Lyra moving as if reading his mind. They dodged and twisted, using the field to their advantage. The alien ship's unique biology allowed it to shift subtly, almost fluidly, around obstacles, outmaneuvering the rigid human-built ships. Despite the danger, Elias felt alive. Each maneuver was a dance, each escape a testament to human ingenuity amplified by Lyra's intelligence. He realized something powerful. Humans survived because they never gave up. They adapted. They improvised. They bonded with the unknown and turned it into strength. Hours of chase passed. He lured the attackers into the densest part of the asteroid belt. Using Lyra's unique abilities, he manipulated gravity fields subtly, nudging rocks into paths that blocked or delayed the pursuers without harming them. One by one, the enemy ships retreated. unable to match the combination of human cunning and alien instinct. Elias laughed aloud, a sound of relief and triumph. You see, Lyra? Humans do get the impossible done. The ship pulsed warmly, almost like a smile. Elias realized they had formed a true partnership, not just pilot and vessel, but two intelligences, human and alien, working as one. By the time they returned to safe orbit, Elias knew his life had changed. He had redeemed himself, not to the world, but to himself. He had discovered human ingenuity, courage, and spirit in its purest form, amplified by a being unlike any other. Later, in the quiet of the docking bay, Elias reflected. He had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear, but he had done it with a bond stronger than steel. Lyra pulsed gently beside him, as if agreeing with his thoughts. Tomorrow, he whispered, we do more. We explore. We learn. We survive. Together, because humans thrived, not because of strength alone, but because of heart, curiosity, and daring. And Elias Rin, once disgraced, was proving that once again, the adventure was far from over. Lyra held secrets, knowledge, and power that humans had never imagined. And Elias, human, fallible, but brilliant, was ready to face every challenge. The stars stretched endlessly before Elias Rin as he guided Lyra through the quiet reaches of space. But peace was a fragile illusion. Sensors flickered. Fast-moving vessels, weapons, armed, approaching from multiple angles. The mercenaries who had tried to capture the living ship before had returned, this time with more numbers, more firepower, and less hesitation. They just don't quit, do they? Lyra pulsed beneath him, warm and responsive. Elias had learned to read her now, felt her moods and intentions as clearly as his own. She wasn't just a ship. She was a partner, a friend, and perhaps something more, a consciousness he could trust implicitly. All right, Lyra. Let's show them why humans survived the impossible, he said. The first volley of laser fire streaked toward them. Elias twisted the controls instinctively. Lyra responded before he even finished the thought, twisting and folding around the beams like liquid. The mercenary ships fired relentlessly. But Elias's experience and Lyra's alive, adaptive intelligence allowed them to dodge, weave, and counter in ways no human pilot could manage alone. Elias knew he couldn't just run. The attackers would follow forever if he fled. He needed strategy, ingenuity, and cunning, the very things that defined humans. He scanned the area. Ahead lay a dense asteroid field, far more dangerous than the one he had navigated before. Most ships would never survive. But Elias and Lyra had learned to trust one another completely, and humans thrived where others failed because they took risks no one else dared. Hold on tight, he whispered. We're going in. The asteroid field swallowed them like a living beast. Lyra adjusted instantly, shifting her hull in subtle, fluid motions that no machine should have been able to perform. Elias pushed her to her limits, diving and rolling through the massive stones, sometimes skimming so close it felt like the rocks would tear them apart. But Lyra responded to his instincts, almost predicting his moves before he made them. One massive rock blocked their path. It was too large to fly around, too heavy to push. Elias paused, thinking. Humans survived impossible situations, not through strength, but through cleverness. He grinned. Lyra, together, he said. The ship pulsed rhythmically in response. Elias initiated a sequence they had never tried before, combining his human intuition with her alien adaptability. He manipulated the ship's energy fields while using the asteroid itself as a shield. The rock shifted slightly, nudged off course by a subtle gravitational pulse from Lyra. It moved just enough to clear their path, while the mercenary ships, unable to react so precisely, slammed into smaller asteroids, one after another. Elias laughed, adrenaline coursing through him. That's how humans do it. But the fight was far from over. The lead enemy ship regrouped, firing a focused energy blast aimed directly at them. Elias calculated. Most pilots would panic. Humans didn't. They improvised. Lyra, trust me, we're going to teach them a lesson. The ship pulsed as if in agreement. Elias tilted the cockpit controls slightly. Not in the way a human ship would move, but in a subtle rhythm that blended human thought and alien reaction. The blast missed by inches, grazing the hull. Lyra shivered and pulsed, almost like a heartbeat quickening with fear. But Elias didn't falter. He realized something powerful. This was human ingenuity amplified by trust and courage. Alone, he might have failed. Alone, the ship might have been destroyed. But together, they were unstoppable. The battle continued, each maneuver more daring than the last. Elias led the enemy ships into a narrow cluster of fast-moving asteroids. Lyra reacted faster than the laws of physics should have allowed, folding and twisting to create impossible escape paths. The mercenaries were trapped, unable to navigate the deadly field without collision. One by one, they broke formation and retreated. Elias exhaled, a laugh escaping him. He had done it, not just survived, but outsmarted and outmaneuvered an entire fleet. Lyra pulsed gently, the rhythm soothing. Elias reached out, resting a hand on the console. "We did it," he said. "Humans survive. Humans win." The stars outside seemed to shimmer in response. Elias knew this wasn't just a victory for himself. It was proof of the human spirit. Humanity thrived not because it had the biggest ships or the most weapons, but because it adapted, learned, and never gave up. After the battle, Elias set a course back to the human colony they had saved earlier. He was tired, but exhilarated. Lyra moved beside him in silence, almost contemplative, like a living being reflecting on the events that had just unfolded. As they approached the colony, sensors picked up celebrations, emergency broadcast thanked the mysterious pilot and his extraordinary ship. Elias smiled. Redemption was not in applause, but in the knowledge that humans could rise above doubt, defeat, and despair. Docking safely, Elias climbed out onto the platform. The colony leaders approached him, eyes wide with awe and gratitude. He could have told them the truth, that the ship was alive, intelligent, and bonded with him. But he decided words were not enough. Actions had spoken louder than any explanation. For the first time in years, Elias felt pride. Not arrogance, not ego, but a deep human pride in courage, determination, and ingenuity. He had faced disgrace, danger, and the unknown, and had emerged stronger. Later, alone in the quiet of the dock, he sat beside Lyra. The ship's hull shimmered softly, responding to his presence. "You're incredible," he whispered, "and we're just getting started." Lyra pulsed in acknowledgement, almost like a smile. Elias realized that their bond had changed him. Humans were more than flesh and instinct. They were curious, inventive, and capable of connection with the unknown. And together, human and ship, they had proven it. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a universe of unknown challenges and discoveries. Elias didn't feel fear. He felt excitement, anticipation, and purpose. Humans had survived against impossible odds for centuries, and he was living proof that human spirit could rise again, even when all seemed lost. Where to next? The ship pulsed brightly, as if responding, ready for any challenge. Elias laughed, feeling alive, free, and capable of anything. Because humans survived. Humans endured. Humans reached for the unknown, and sometimes, just sometimes, they found something extraordinary. And Elias Rin, once disgraced, had done exactly that. The adventure was not over. The universe was wide, dangerous, and full of mysteries. But humans, with curiosity, courage, and heart, could face anything. He and Lyra drifted into the stars, a human and a living alien ship, partners in adventure, discovery, and survival, leaving a trail of light and hope in the endless darkness.